One of the things I love the most about St. Lydia's is that it's a thing still in the process of becoming, and that's part of its identity.
Our central act at St. Lydia's is to gather together around a meal and around a table. The idea is that when we're at this table together, there's a way in which we're practicing for how we'd like to be when we're out in the world. So it's a table where we learn how to feed one another and where we learn how to be fed. It's a table where we learn to be compassionate with one another and patient with one another. And it's a table where we learn to be open to God's presence and to spend time sort of feeling that movement and that presence in our lives.
We start our worship by gathering around a central candle and singing a lamp-lighting hymn. And we all light our own candles from that one central candle and pass the fire from one person to the next. And then as we sing, we process to the tables and light all the candles on the tables. And by doing that, we all get to participate in marking this space as sacred.
So there's a story in the book of Luke that's about Jesus after the resurrection meeting two disciples on the road, and they don't recognize him. And what happens is that they come together for dinner, and when they sit down at the table, Jesus breaks bread. And it says that he was known to them in the breaking of the bread, that in the moment that the bread broke, the disciples recognized Christ. This is my body.
This is my body.
Amen. And that's really the story that's at the heart of everything that we do together, that when we gather together at this table and when we break bread and share it, there's a sense that Christ is in our midst. And not only is Christ there with us at the table, but he's also present in each of us so that we can be Christ to one another.
Earlier in my life, I had an idea that going to church meant making certain proclamations and adhering to certain theories. But being at St. Lydia's and sitting down every week next to strangers, I found that in that moment, when I pass the bread and the bread is passed to me, that God is present and I feel connected to something bigger than myself.
And Jesus stands on the shore of the gray morning in the dawn, the same hour that he appeared to Mary Magdalene in the garden. Dawn, when the night is not quite over, but the day has not quite begun. He appears, inhabiting this in-between time when darkness and light are intermingled. His question to the disciples breaks my heart. "Children, you have no fish, have you?" And they answer him, "No, we have been fishing all night and we haven't caught anything." When the catch comes in, it is more than they could have ever dreamed of, more than they could ever consume. And still, we are told, the net does not tear.
I think St. Lydia's appeals to people who maybe live far away from family, and either emotionally or geographically, and crave a home-cooked meal in the company of people who will accept them for who they are, no matter what they are.
So we finish our worship by everyone in the congregation helping to clean up all the food and the dishes and all the big mess that we've made. And that's one of my favorite moments in the service because I think there's a way in which you can kind of see the community that's been formed over the course of the evening, that when we came together at the beginning of the night, we were strangers to one another, and by the end of the night, we're friends.
I think that there's a big emphasis in our culture on the finished product, but I've realized that I learned something from the process of making something, and that's really where the value is for me in being an artist. And I think that's true at St. Lydia's as well. By making church together every week, we learn about ourselves, and it doesn't really matter if the singing sounds perfect or if the food tastes perfect, or, it really matters that we did it and that we wrestled with it for a while together.
Amen.
Holy food for holy people, share in the meal.